Welcome to BNFM, the official podcast of Bottleless Nation, where we go behind the scenes with the people building this company. I'm Kylie, and this summer we're sitting down with our regional sales managers, the leaders driving results in the field every single day. Today's guest leads our West Coast region. Welcome, Jeff Larson, regional sales manager who has been with Bottleless Nation for 3.5 years. Jeff, welcome to BNFM.
Oh, thank you very much, Kylie. It's great to be here.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you. To start off, I always like to give everyone a little bit of a background. Some of the people listening to this probably work with you, work under you, know you, but for those who don't, could you give them just a brief introduction of how you came to work for Bottleless Nation? Were you always in water? What have you been up to before you were working with us?
Yeah, so I spent the bulk of the last 20 years working for a beverage distributor named Columbia Distributing, where I specifically focused on selling Red Bull products.
Oh,
And began there as an account executive, selling Red Bull to convenience stores and grocery stores, etc. Grew my sales career into to the level of being a district manager. And then the sales manager for Columbia Distributing's Red Bull team. So I managed a team of 7 district managers and 36 account executives for the state of Washington. And so that was great. And then most recently, I did start to, basically I was in a training program to become a certified residential appraiser. And so went from the distributorship to become a trainee. That offered me the flexibility and financial stability that I was looking for at the time, and had a great time there in my 3 years of being basically a trainee, working under a supervisor, working on residential appraisal assignments. And so unfortunately, towards the end of my training program, as I was becoming a certified residential appraiser, the Fed was in the process of increasing the interest rates. And through that series of rate increases, it really killed the market. And so by the time I actually passed my certified residential exam, there was no appraisals to work on. And so I was left trying to find a job. And I was lucky enough to find Bottleless Nation. So that's how I ended up here.
I love it. I love it. What was the main changes or like excitement in going from, being separate entities to going into one entity?
Well, the one constant is change. I mean, we should always be, changing to evolve and, get a little bit better each day. Certainly there was a reorganizational structure of the leadership team and so forth, and really just finding people. It's been, I guess the biggest change was, really becoming quite a bit closer with the leadership team and the beaches specifically. Really, it was kind of like, it was a separate company. And so we didn't really have regular dealings with Austin Beach and Cameron Beach and so forth. They were working on the Office H2O side, and I worked very closely with the leadership team over, Todd and the leadership team over at Artesian. So, really the biggest difference is really coming together, similar to the, the two companies, obviously, Office H2O and Artesian blended together, and now we are one Bottleless Nation. So it's just been exciting to get a chance to have a closer and tighter relationship with the senior leadership team and get to know them and what's important to them and their cultural differences and values as well.
Definitely. Were there any things that drew you to Bottleless Nation in the beginning?
So, initially, of course, we want to put ourselves in a position to succeed. And I really felt like I was doing that by taking the step to join Bottleless Nation. And so certainly the mission is a good one. Reduction of plastics and sustainability is obviously something that's pretty easy to stand behind. From a sales perspective, it was easy to, everybody drinks water, right? And so that was also a plus. Yeah, true. Either that or they might be looking at some kidney stones if they're not, right? So, certainly the mission, the need for water, the culture of the team was something that certainly, I was drawn to. which is one of the most important things even today that we focus on is to bring the right people onto the team. We
Mm-hmm.
don't want to have to walk around on eggshells or tippy toes to work with each other and so forth. And so the culture of the team was important and one that I could definitely felt like I was a part of right out of the gates, which was exciting. And then I guess the other thing that drew me to Bottleless Nation was honestly the financial gain that was reported that I could enjoy through hard work and sticking to the process.
Yeah, definitely. Do you find any correlation between is selling Red Bull similar to selling water, or are there a lot of differences there?
So Red Bull, to be honest with you, was like nails on a chalkboard in comparison to selling water. This is not rocket science. What we do here today at Bottleless Nation, we're selling water, we're selling a need, we've got ways to help everybody. Whether it be a higher quality of water, a more efficient, more convenient program, cost-effective program. There's a lot of benefits to selling this product, and it's not super difficult to do. Like I said, it's not rocket science. Red Bull was very particular about they only sell one brand, right? And so they really drill down into every nook and cranny of what it takes to sell that, which is a good thing. But the way that they go about it was very difficult. I felt like we were setting up a meeting to set the next meeting to talk about the next tracker, and it was constant, tracking the tracker. And so,
Mm-hmm.
this has been a breath of fresh air versus the Red Bull days.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's good to hear. Now that you're overseeing people like in this capacity in selling water and ice, what would you say is like the number one piece of advice you would give to someone starting off? They're in their first couple months of selling. What would the advice that you would give to them be?
Well, that's a pretty easy one. Stick to the process. Just leave it there. Stick to the process. Certainly, we can make it our own. We can deliver the information in a way that suits our personality and the way that we interact, the way that we deliver that information. However, we really need to stick to the process. All of the elements of the process are very important, and as we hone in and be the best we can be at each one of those individual steps throughout the process, and
Hmm.
really not skip any of them is the most important part. That is definitely a key to success.
Yeah. What do you find that people stray away from when you're talking about this, like the sales process?
So I feel like we find ourselves, even myself, you get put into a situation where you think that there might be a good reason to stray from the process. Take for example, maybe you walk into an account, you're pulling a door, and instead of setting that meeting for a future date, they say, hey, I've got a few minutes now. Can you run the meeting now? Or and so you go ahead and do that. Well, that doesn't give ourselves and even maybe more importantly the prospect a chance to prepare for the meeting in the way that we would like them to prepare for the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to maybe somebody says, hey, I don't really care about your presentation. Yeah. Just tell me the price. Just tell me the price. And so we stray from sharing the features and benefits of our program and of our coolers, and then almost invariably something will go awry. And so when you decide to stray from the process, you maybe don't have the information that you need. Maybe you skip the warm up sheet because they don't have the time, you don't think, to be able to allow you to uncover some of those pain points and so forth. And so I would say that each element of the process is very important, from the appointment setting to the way that we run those appointments, setting the agenda, running the warm up sheets, and then making sure that we go on a field trip to the cooler so that we can analyze where that cooler is and look at the landscape of what it is that we're looking at, to be able to clearly demonstrate the features and benefits and the installation and all of the different elements that go into it.
Yeah.
Post meeting, then we're talking about making sure that we're going on a 2-day follow up. and checking in on that installation, making sure that the cooler's working properly, and making sure that that their team doesn't have any questions. If they haven't used the cooler, then I offer to buy them a drink and take them to the water cooler and show them how to use it and so forth. From there, at the 2-day follow-up, if we don't get the buying signals that they're ready to move forward with the program, then we're going to set that next meeting and make sure that the expectations are clear on when it is that we'll be back, so that we can talk about next steps of the program. Mm-hmm. So there's lots of little steps, inside of those steps, but definitely the process is one that works. It's proven to have been very successful for quite some time, and I really believe in it myself. So
I like it. And I think that one of the things that Rick says that I always crack up is like, it works so well, we stopped doing it. And I find that to be funny because it is so true. You do it and it works, and then you're like, well, I'll try something else. Oh, I'll do this. I'll, kind of call an audible. And I think it's good to just, stick with what you're supposed to do. I think that's good advice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100% agreed.
Is there something that you are talking with your team about right now?
Aside from sticking to the process, one of the things that we're really focusing on right now is appointment setting is key. And so we're in the appointment setting business. We have to have appointments to be able to get in front of people to run this process. Mm-hmm. So it's really about how to approach the appointment setting, making sure that we're using a good value proposition that's going to create some value and some more interest in people allowing us to come spend 15 or 20 minutes with them. Mm-hmm. And objection handling, as far as what we might run into, as far as some of the hurdles that we might see or hear that prevent us from securing those appointments. Yeah. So that's what we've been focusing on a lot lately is appointment setting and objection handling.
Okay. So if they're not setting appointments, what are they doing?
If you're not setting appointments, then ultimately you're not achieving your sales targets, probably. And so you're not running enough appointments. So there's probably a miss in, either the way that you're approaching that conversation with the gatekeeper. You may have some challenges with overcoming some of those objections. I mean, one of the objections that we receive a lot is, hey, we're good. We've already got a water service in place. Well, most customers do. And if we're not armed with, some way to get around that obstacle, then, and we just turn around and tuck our heads down and so forth and turn and leave after they say no the first time. Really, ultimately, it's, no is when our job starts, right? When we get those objections, that's really when our job starts, is to be able to, you have to be able to overcome those objections to be successful and secure. The other thing is, just persistence in general, right? Mm-hmm. So, you may not get that meeting the first time. However, stick with it. I've had many different customers of mine sit across from me at the signing table and thank me for my persistence. The employees will walk by and wave and share a special thank you, like, give me the thank you for sticking with it and helping their team out with the purified water and ice, because a lot of people are just reluctant to change. And so Definitely. Yeah, and so sticking with it, being persistent, following up and following through with good opportunities, knowing that, maybe it takes 2 or 3 or sometimes even more no's to get to the yes, is really important.
Definitely. No, I think that's really good. I liked what you were talking about with persistence. Do you feel like, if you could give me 3 of the top attributes that you could say, I know someone's going to be successful if they have this, this, and this, in whether like in their personality type?
So I would say you got to be a good communicator. You have to follow up and follow through. Mm-hmm. And persistence is certainly one of those.
What would you say is something that your team is really good at, that they're really killing right now?
I would say working together, really. Like, the salesperson I am here at Bottleless Nation today is not because of Jeff and everything that Jeff did, right? We have to listen to not only our customers, certainly, and what they're having to tell us and being able to dig in and uncover those pain points, but we have to listen to our team members as well, the other
Mm-hmm.
people who are being successful within the company, and work together to share those positive ideas and positive, little quips that are fun or informative, or really help and lend themselves very well to our process. So a lot of the things that I say, or at least some of the things that I say, I didn't even get from me. I was listening to other people, and we build off of each other, right? We're a team, and we're trying to build a culture of success through teamwork, and hard work, and following the process.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And I think that says something about you as a leader and the type of leadership skills that you have to be able to say, oh, well, I'm not like, I don't know the best of everything. Like, what do you think about this? I think that's really cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's about, we just got done reading the 21 Laws of Leadership.
Hmm.
It was a project that Rick put out there for our team, and it was a great learning experience. We talk about sharpening our axe and trying to get just a little bit better each day. And to understand that, that, hey, there's, according to the author, there's 21 different, attributes that are important in all leadership, and we can't be good at all 21 things. And so one of the laws is the law of the inner circle, which states that basically, we want to build people around us that help us in, maybe areas maybe I'm not that great at whatever, trait or characteristic that might be, and to build a team around us that will allow us to all build off of each other's strengths and make
Yeah.
us all just a little bit better each day and each week, and so forth and so on.
That's very cool. The other thing I wanted to talk about, because you are in a different geographical area than other people, do you feel like that changes some of your sales tactics, the types of products that you're selling, or do you feel like it's pretty similar across the different markets?
I think we all have different things that are important to different people and different communities and different cultures and so forth, different qualities of water.
Hmm.
We just running a meeting with one of our account executives, a newer account executive, earlier today, and the total dissolved solids in the water coming out of the filter cooler were 33, and the tap water comes out at 28.
Oh my
So
gosh.
certainly there's something to be said for, or at least a way that we can spin that to our benefit, because the TDS went up from the tap to the water cooler, which we can play on that a little bit. However, at the same time, we need to adjust our talk track a little bit. We're not going to run a precip test, because that precip test isn't going to do us any good, because there's going to be, it's not going to generate the impact that we're really looking for from a precip test. And so
Hmm.
instead of talking about how our coolers produce this pure water that's 20 parts per million or less, and the fact that 20 to 30 parts per million is considered high quality bottled water, we don't want to say that that 20 to 30 is high quality bottled water in this particular instance, because as soon as we show them that 28, or or that anywhere in that ballpark, they think they got high quality bottled water, and they're probably okay with that, and that kind of shoots down their mind's eye of their perception of their willingness to want to jump in and do something different, because they may not perceive it to be that much of a benefit.
Hmm.
When we talk a little bit more about it and kind of peel back that onion a little bit, we talk about the fact that our TDS in our water is actually, we know that those are the good dissolved solids in the water, because basically what we've done is pretty much distill the water, taking out all of the inorganic contaminants from the leads, mercury, arsenic, chromium 6, and the like. We take all of that stuff out, including the microplastics and the nanoplastics and the PFAS and everything else, But then the TDS that you might see in our reading, we know is going to be the good stuff, the calcium, the magnesium, and the other essential minerals that we add back into the water.
Mm-hmm.
So, about certainly there's some differences in tactically and how we present the information and what we cover in our meetings based on geography.
Yeah, the water coming out of our sink is 1,000,
It's what?
like 1,000.
Don't drink it, Kylie.
No, I have it under the counter. Don't even worry about that. But it's so funny. Were like, oh yeah, the water coming out of the tap is under 100, and I'm like, I wish that's what our
Yeah.
water was. So it's just
The
funny because you're so right. Geographically, it does make a huge difference.
Yeah, and even from city to city, it changes. What's in the
Hmm.
water table. The highest TDS that I've seen in my territory is between 120 to 160. That's the highest I've seen, and most often, like I said, it's very low. The water at my house comes out at 35.
Crazy.
Downtown Seattle, it can be in the 20s very easily, and so really we we start with pretty good water in relationship to some areas. Take for example, in Texas, obviously where you're at, Indianapolis and Phoenix, Arizona, people don't want to drink that water at all.
Hmm.
Here we do run into some instances where people are, they're still like, I used to drink from the hose. This water's great, no problem here. I'm good. And
Yeah,
so then we have to find another angle to be able to attack.
for sure. Is there anything that you feel like constantly surprises people when you tell them in a sales meeting, like that people don't know about water?
Well, a lot of people don't consider the fact that, really that, once water's unprotected, so when we filter water, it removes the chlorine, which has been put in the water to, keep the water clean, keep the system clean, and prevent bacteria growth.
Hmm.
And so when we do present the material on the the science behind how that bacteria does grow inside the reservoirs of simple filter cooler units and also 5 gallon units, a lot of people hadn't considered that and didn't know that they even needed to be cleaned or anything like that.
Hmm.
And so certainly there's times where at that point when we share that information, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm I'm never drinking out of that thing again. How fast can you get your unit in here? And we're looking forward to the partnership.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, grossing people out definitely is a good sales tactic, I think. You
Yep.
know, I think that definitely works.
Yeah. I mean, one thing we certainly want to do is to listen to our prospects, during the warm up sheet, and take that time, that discovery phase during the warm up sheet to really peel back the onion and develop and make some of those pain points even more dramatic and build those up so that we can
Hmm.
then solve for those pains. But it's really about listening and uncovering the needs of our customer, and then being able to, like I said, there's so many different ways that our units help people, and our company helps people with service times and response times and so forth. And so lots of good stuff going on there.
Definitely, definitely. Going back to some of your leadership experience you were talking about in the beginning, how do you feel like your leadership style has evolved over your time being, in your previous experience and then now being at Bottleless Nation?
Well, as we grow older and have more experience, we do learn a little bit each day and try to get a little bit better each day. And the reading the 21 laws of leadership was a great experience to just kind of bring it back and sort of reset
Hmm.
and to understand that I mean, I know a lot of the different things that it takes to be a good leader. Hadn't ever sat down and broken them down into 21 things that I needed to try to be good at. So understanding some of those very well and having implemented them for some time, and being able to understand that there is always room for opportunity. Even the greatest sale, you can go out and you can run a meeting that where you felt like you did really good. You stuck to the process. You ended up selling the demo. and you feel really good about that. We need to challenge ourselves to understand, certainly pat ourselves on the back and celebrate the things that we did well, and at the same time as reflect on what it is that we think we could have done better for next time.
Yeah.
And so if we can learn and grow from each and every interaction that we have and every deal that we work and every appointment we run, then I think we're, like I said, getting just a little bit better each day, and building on that, and understanding that it's never perfect. We can always be just a little bit better.
Definitely. Definitely. When you are chatting with your team, what do you think are what's something that's coming up for them often that also came up for you when you were, newer to selling?
Yeah, so objection handling is one of those things for
Big
sure.
ones.
When you're new, you've got the training and the tools and the resources that you have at your disposal to help you to be successful. But you really, and you can read objection handling, and we've got some trainings on objection handling and what to say in some certain situations. However, the best way to get the training and experience that you're going to need as far as objection handling is to run into that objection and have to overcome that obstacle yourself. It's kind of like when your parents tell you, that something is important and they would like you to do something a certain way, and you think your way is better, and and so you do it your own way, and then you find out later that that your parents actually were onto something, and that maybe you could have saved yourself a bunch of time and energy by just listening and running their play or the process to begin with. But objection handling is something that that certainly we can talk about and we role play and we get to know it, but to be able to come up with and overcome those objections quickly takes some time and some practice, and really running into them and having to overcome them yourself.
Definitely. Yeah. Got to learn by doing, that totally
There we
makes
go.
sense. One more question about some sales advice that you would give. If someone's in a slump, what advice would you give to them to get out of it?
So talk it out, role play with with your team members or with yourself, with a trusted family member. Go back to basics is really what I would suggest. Is to it's all a numbers game. You may go out and pull 50 doors and you may get no appointments one day. However, the next time you go out and pull 50 doors, you may get 8 or 10 appointments. You just got to really keep your head down, stick to the process, certainly keep getting a little bit better with each interaction and so forth. However, stick to it, and go back to the process and back to the basics.
If you listen to the other podcasts, we end with the same question for everyone, and that is, what advice would you give your younger self?
Advice that I'd give to my younger self
Yep.
is really that the team comes first, and the sacrifices that we give up for the one to help the many or the masses goes a long way.
Jeff, thank you so much for joining me today on BNFM, and people are going to be excited to listen to this one.